So I've been wanting to try a quick Devumentary, basically talking about the making of a game, and I just finished a demo for a zombie typing survival game. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to dig in and talk about what I did. So if you don't want any spoilers, then jump over to my itch page right now and give it a go. It's completely free. I'll stick a link in the description below. I actually had the idea for the game quite a few years ago, but I just hadn't had a chance to do it yet. Basically, I found my original scribble down for it, but it was everything you do in the game is based on typing, and zombies, because I love zombies. So on the left-hand side, you can see basically the first thing I did, which was setting up like input and then getting things to react to that input. And then on the right, after a bunch of work, you can see where I ended up, what the game actually ended up being. In the end, I think it took me around 6 weeks to make by myself, and that was evenings, weekends, and I was lucky enough to have a whole week off work, so I just used that to do a bunch of art stuff. There's this indie game dev called Jonas Tarola, who I'm a big fan of, and in one of his videos he was talking about how he tries to split mechanics and art into separate things when he's doing game jam. So the idea behind it is that you can kind of basically focus in on the mechanics or focus in on the art and don't get distracted by trying to do both things at the same time. So I thought I'd give that a try with this game. I chose to start with the mechanics because it's something I enjoy a lot more. First thing I did was I got the player's input when they're typing on the keyboard, and then when they typed a hard set word, it would create an explosion sound. Next up, it's a game about zombies, so I added some placeholder zombies and I assigned a word to each of them that you needed to type to kill them. After that, I decided to get some movement into the game, both to the player and the AI, so you can see me move into the different spots while trying to fight the zombies at the same time. This started to feel cool, started to add a bit of tension, even though you couldn't die in the game at this point. I was trying to stay away from doing art stuff, but I realised I needed a bit of feedback. So above the zombies' heads, I was using texts, and I actually switched that to 3D widgets, and that allowed me to do what you can see with the text colour changing as you fill it in. I felt things were going well, so I decided to concentrate on the core game loop, and I think it's always good to get that in early. So I created a health component for the player, which would allow me to create health state and allow the player to be killed. So you can see here, it just pops up a little death UI, and I also start blocking out a rough level. After that, I revisited the actual typing system to make it more complex behind the scenes, but kept it quite simple on the surface for the actual player. Basically, the list originally was like a hard set list of maybe 7 different words. However, I changed it to picking a random word from data tables that could have hundreds of words in them. This made things feel a bit more dynamic, a bit more tense. It was a bit more complicated than I first thought it was going to be, because I had to check for duplicates and track words that were actually out, but I definitely think it was worth it in the end. So the next thing on my list was to start working on interactables. So I wanted to make it things like doors, so you can see here. So there's a move to state in this door, and then you can interact with the door to trigger it. Previously as well, all the zombies in the map would just walk towards you as soon as the game started, but I changed that so they had like an unactive state by default, and then as you see when I walk into this room, the zombies get triggered. So that helped to kind of pace things out a little bit more. And you can see it happening again here, so they trigger when I walk in the room. I also didn't want to do too much of the art, but I was getting a bit sick of seeing a very bright level, so I decided to ditch a lot of the lights. And then I finished off the gameplay loop by adding a survive state, so I got quite a lot done here. Continuing on with the interaction stuff, I made lootables, which I tied to a inventory component that allowed the player to take stuff. By this point, I'd got a lot of the base mechanics working. The only one I hadn't really touched on was the UI system. So I wanted to have the UI be interactable via typing as well. Goal of the game being everything is typable. So as you can see in the video, I started to implement that, and I was pretty happy with it. So with the mechanics being in a good place, I decided to move over and focus on the art side of things. Art side of things is normally where I struggle a bit more. Originally I tried to make a pipeline from Magical Voxel, seeing as I was doing a voxel style, which would go Magical Voxel, Blender, into Unreal. I felt it was very long and there was a bunch of issues with it, so in the end I actually just used Blender. I just used a consistent unit size and snapping to create the assets. I made another level completely separate to my gameplay level, and I started building out these little scenes that you can see here in the images. I found this quite useful. I kind of themed these up, so I did a kitchen front room and then a bathroom and then a bedroom, and I started building these up. I think theming it made it easier to make the assets, and I quite enjoyed it in the end. It basically just became a process. Like I said at the beginning, I had like a week off and I just blasted through making a lot of these assets and getting them into Engine. So for this game, I found a really interesting way to help me pick colours. So I'm colourblind, and I always struggle with colours because I literally can't see them. but I used ChatGPT this time to help me with my colour choices. So how this worked was basically I would say, hey, I need a colour for a sofa made of 2 parts, primary and secondary colour. Give me an sRGB colour based on the kind of art style that I wanted for the game. It would give me a colour code, I could take that into Unreal, and then I could literally copy paste that into my material, and then I would have a colour that's consistent with the art style that I wanted to do. Now, some people love AI, some people hate it, but it genuinely helped me out with this, with something I couldn't do by myself. So if you're colourblind and you've been putting off main games because you're worried about the colour side of things, just know there's ways around it. You can definitely do it. So I was reasonably happy with how the art was looking in my art test level, so I decided to merge that into my prototype level, my main level. And I had a bit of a problem here that it just looked crap, like it just didn't look good. In my case, it was a mixture of the play spaces were just too big and open, I missed some post settings bringing across. I really just needed to fill out the level as well. So it did start coming back together, it just took quite a lot of work. I think I first imagined it would just be like, oh, you just bring it across, you know, you've made your scenes and your assets look nice. But that wasn't the case, it still took work. But it did come back together, as you can kind of see in these images. So one thing that quickly became apparent when I had the environment stuff in was that the characters stood out like a sore thumb now, because they were basically just the Unreal Engine mannequin. I went back to Blender and I started blocking out a character, I added more detail, and then I brought it back into Engine as a static mesh, and I kept going back and forth on that until I was happy with the kind of look and the level of detail. I gave the player a backpack to make him stand out a little bit, and then I decided to split the character meshes up into modular pieces, as you can see here, a bunch of legs, t-shirts and heads. This was mainly for the AI though. The player wasn't actually going to be able to change their clothes, but I wanted to be able to easily switch the appearance of a bunch of the AI. Up until that point, I'd been trying to stay away from doing any sort of juice or polish and stuff like that, but I was killing the zombies and they just weren't feeling very good, and I realised killing the zombies is the main thing you do in the game. So I added some ragdoll, some VFX. Now that I had the character in, I did a mesh switch for the head when you kill them, and this straight away made things feel a lot better. I then went and tried to make the shooting and the gunplay feel better. This was a bit of a fail. I had this idea in my head. If you've ever seen the film Equilibrium, I wanted to make the guy kind of do cool poses and shoot different directions. So he didn't rotate, he just aimed at where the zombie was. However, it didn't work, or at least I don't think it worked. I thought it looked a bit naff. It's one of those things where you think it's going to be cool in your head and it just doesn't turn out cool. So I kind of left it the way it was and decided to move on to some more stuff. So if I remember rightly, I was a bit bummed out because the shooting thing I tried just didn't work and I was struggling with it a little bit. So when I'm struggling with stuff and I need motivation, I go back to UI. I enjoy UI a lot, and as you can see here, I started working on the menus, or using the interaction thing that I set up before. So the main menu, pause menu, death screen, and the survive screen. And I enjoyed this a lot, and I think it helped kind of wrap the game and make it feel more like a game as a whole. So after working on the UI, here is how the game kind of was at the time. It was looking alright, it was looking good, but it was just missing, it felt like it was missing a lot of stuff. There was a lot of things that were kind of like not quite finished, could do with polish, could do with juice, they needed VFX, they needed sound, they needed animation. So I decided to make that kind of my next priority. I was going away for work for a couple of days, so I took my laptop with a build on it, and I played it while I was away, and I just wrote down a couple of pages of notes of just lots of small things I could do to make it look and feel better. When I came back, I got to work sort of working through that list. You can see I'll stick up the juiced up version. Things were just feeling a lot better. It really sort of came together. While I was working on this polish pass, I sent it out to a couple of people to get some feedback, and honestly I can't stress how useful it is to get people playing your game. There's obvious things like finding bugs and stuff, but it's great to get a different perspective on the game, because it's very easy to become blindsided by how deep you are in development. So I can give an example of really useful feedback. I got some feedback from Andrew, and he said that basically when he thought he had to manually reload, the game was a lot more tense, it was a lot more fun, and he completely lost that feeling when he realised that it was automatic reloading. So basically at the time I had a automatic reload when the mag was empty, but you could manually reload it at any time. From his feedback, I changed it to fully manual all the time, and honestly, like now when I play, it does make it so much more tense, and I think it was a really good decision, which was spurred on by his comment and his playthrough that he had. I kept the automatic reload as a setting in the pause menu just for people who were finding the game too hard. As I was getting pretty happy with how things were, and I was getting at the end, I thought I should give it a quick optimised. Found a few things that didn't have a max draw distance set. I added a cull volume. I deleted a bunch of assets that just weren't doing anything in the level you couldn't see. And I optimized some collision. I definitely could have done a lot more, but for the demo and what I wanted, I think it was good enough. And with that, I was finished. I did a quick shipping build, made an itch page, uploaded everything, and what you can see on the screen right now is the final game and the gameplay. I had a lot of fun making the game, and I feel it went quite well. I think the fact that I'd been thinking about the game for so long meant that when it came down to it, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. So, go play the game, let me know what you think, and I hope you enjoy it. If you like this Devumentary kind of thing, let me know in the comments, and I'll make some more for the other games I make.